Ah! Yep, it works.
Is anybody here? You sure you want to be up here?
Oh, sure. Jeff.
I'm Doug. Jim. Carol and Jim. Lord. Well, yeah, everybody knows Carol. I'll get the turkey.
I'm year round right now. But
Don't take
well, I'm not doing any good to meet you. Past couple of years, I just
You insult him?
that's the thing. We didn't stay at the church. There's a young adult library I go to. I'm in there. Yep.
That's what you do.
I'll make mine next week. I'm considering. Yeah, I think so. But yeah.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is good to be here with you tonight. And that could have been so bad. All right, let's pray. Lord, Father in heaven, we are thankful that right now you are with us. Your Spirit indwells us individually and collectively. We know that as we gather, we become a little piece of that temple that you reside in, Lord. And so we're just so thankful for that, for your presence with us tonight. And just ask, Lord, that you would reveal for every one of us the depths of our hearts. That you would just help us unpack and uncover and bring to light those things that maybe we don't know about ourselves, that you would, in your grace, in your mercy, help us, Lord, to go deeper in that transforming power of the gospel than we've maybe ever gone before. So God, that's what we're asking for tonight. I pray that you would do that by the power of your Spirit and just establish the work that we're doing today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So I want to begin by reviewing reviewing what we looked at last week. Today we're going to look at the inward realities of the heart. But last week we started with the outward realities. So today we're going to go inward. I want to review the outside of the heart. So we had, and I'm going to make the heart a lot bigger this time. Let's see if I can be the artist I know I am inside. Okay, all right. Up top we had God, right? And over here on this side, what do we have? Others, yeah, good. Others, people. Down here, what did we have? Good. Circumstances. And what did we have over here? Self. Good. Now, at the back of your notes this week and last week, we have you have that model, and I just we're going to zoom in on the heart today, but I give that to you. Just keep it and be thinking about it that way. So, focusing on the heart now. Remember the definition we pulled out last week was a biblical term that broadly encompasses the immaterial aspects of a human being. The immaterial aspects of a human being. A heart, soul, mind, feelings, all of that, right? It's all in there, in this word heart. And primarily, as we were looking at the heart, there were three areas in particular. The first is that cognitive aspect of the heart, your thoughts, your beliefs, and the questions that you're asking. All of that mind activity is really what we're looking at right there. Next, we had that emotional side of our hearts, that the feelings there, the feelings, and closely connected to that, the desires. And then the last piece that we had in our hearts was the will, or our volition. And remember that these three cannot be separated. They are interconnected. And as we go through our time today, we're really going to see that connection more closely than ever. The heart itself expresses itself dynamically. Remember Luke 6:45, that from the heart the mouth speaks. We bring treasures out of the inside of our hearts. You can see what's in someone's heart by their actions. The heart expresses itself. So everything that's in here is going to come out. And in order to help us understand what's going on in here, in order for us to understand why we say the things we say, why we do the things we do, we need to study the heart. We need to unpack it. We need to uncover it. And this is simply a model to help us think through those things. This is a snapshot in time. And as we study the snapshot, we'll gain a greater understanding and an awareness of how we respond to life's circumstances. So I want to remember, we are very still limited in understanding our hearts. So this is going to help us understand ourselves more, but never fully. Only God knows the true depths of our hearts. This is one of those things where the closer you look, eventually you start to just get lost in the weirdness of your own heart. So there's a limitation to this, but it's worth doing, because the more accurately that we know our hearts, the more accurately we're going to be able to diagnose the problem. And the more accurate our diagnosis, the more effective our treatment will be, right? The more we understand the heart, the better we can apply the gospel for change. So that outer context now, God, others, circumstances, and myself. Going back to God. He is always with me, empowering me, loving me, interceding for me, and working for my sanctification. So he's always with me. He's empowering me, right? He's loving me. He's working for my sanctification. All these things are happening all of the time. God is constantly doing that to me. Can you ever get him to stop doing those things? Can you ever sin so much that he will depart from you? Can you ever sin so much that he won't work on your sanctification anymore? Never. So remember that we can, we're in relationship with God, so when we sin, it does grieve his heart. And when we do good, it does bring him joy. But we can never stop him from being faithful. He's always faithful to us, right? So that line back to God is dotted from our hearts. What does God want my heart to do towards him in any circumstance? What does he want of me? What does he want out of a response out of my heart? Glorify him, love him, worship him, right? Yeah, when all of this is directed entirely towards him, we're getting to where the heart's response is supposed to be, right? And we can think of Job again. He just got the worst news ever, going through the worst situation ever. What is his heart's response to God? The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So we are very much examining the heart and seeing how it responds to God and wanting the heart's response to be worship. That is, if you will, the goal of the biblical counseling process. To get the heart to worship God in any circumstance. So as we go through the outside real quickly, I want us to think about what's the goal in terms of the heart's response to God. The goal in terms of the heart's response to others, the goal in terms of the heart's response to our circumstances, and the goal in terms of our heart's response to ourself. So with this one, with God, the goal is worship, right? That's what we're aiming for. So what does worship look like when you're eating? Does it mean that you stop, bust out a guitar, and start singing "How Great Is Our God"? Is that the only way to worship as you eat? No, you eat it with thankfulness, right, to the Lord. That is worship. What does worship look like when you're buying a home? What's that? You thankful for your house? Absolutely. I'm thankful for the home that I buy. What other aspects of worship might show up in buying a home? Gratefulness, thankfulness, gratitude. What else? Dependence. Good. Absolutely. Using it for the Lord. Lord, thank you for this house. I can't wait to lock all the doors, keep everyone out, and just enjoy my humble abode. God's not honored by your thankfulness, right? Because you're totally focused on you, right? Lord, thank you for this house. It belongs to you. I give it back to you. Use it for the ministry. Use it for the building of your kingdom, right? Thank you. So worship in a home doesn't just look like thankfulness. It also is going to look like, let's have some people over, right? What does worship look like when you get cancer? You're focused on him. Maybe trust and hope and tears, all of that to God, right? That's a beautiful expression of worship. So we just talked about 3 ways that worship will show up in life that require no Chris Tomlin songs, right? So the worship that we do there in the worship center on Sunday morning with the guitars, that's great and all, right? But when God says, I want you to be a living sacrifice of worship, he's not talking about that Sunday morning. In fact, if that Sunday morning isn't built up by a life of worship, he doesn't really want it at all, right? So the goal, when we think about the heart's response to God, is worship. And remember that, again, that's going to look different from situation to situation, okay? Now others, just kind of briefly remember that you want to ask, so you identify who the other people are in this situation, and ask good questions about their actions. What are they doing and their motives? Why are they doing it? And try to piece together their story. Try to understand them. Why is this important? That we see people and we understand the why, that we understand why they're doing what they're doing. Thank you. Yeah, you can't be sympathetic to someone that you don't understand. You can't be empathetic to somebody that you don't understand. You're not going to be able to love them well. So, give you an example. Korean kids, we all grow up and you bring home that 99% and your mom looks at you and says, man, if you just tried a little harder, you could have got 100, right? And it's just like, if I don't think about the why behind my mom doing that, I'm going to resent her. I'm going to be really angry. But if I understand the why, then it can change my perception of those things. So don't let the other people just exist in your life doing things. Understand who they are, why they're doing them. But also understand, how is that influencing my heart? So as you think about the feelings, the desires, the thoughts, the will, you're thinking about how does what they're doing affect what's going on in here? Now, I have to be careful. They can't make me feel a certain way, right? One of the gifts of the Holy Spirit is self-control, right? We want to remember that we are in control of our thoughts, right? We are in control of how our heart's feeling and responding to things like that. At least we should be exerting that control. I think a lot of times we never try to control it, and so you lack that skill, right? Children are born with no ability to influence this. And as we grow in life, some of us develop that ability and some of us don't, right? And we all know grown-ups who have a hair trigger, who have no ability to cope and handle their own emotions. So we need to be exercising control here. Others can't force us. We need to be aware of how they're affecting us. And then, also we need to be aware of how we're affecting them. That goes both ways. How am I responding to these people? And the goal here with these people would be love and good deeds. So I want my heart's response towards the other people in my life be to love them. I want to feel love and good deeds. I want to do good. So I don't want to do good without love, and I don't want to love without good deeds. Those two things should come together, right? So love and good deeds towards the other people in my life. Circumstances on the bottom. Remember that we were going to think through those categories of circumstances and focus on those categories that are most relevant to the situation. The history from past to present, the finances, the social interactions, the politics, the culture, the constraints, the freedoms, the expectations, right? All those categories, start identifying what's most important. And then in your handout, you'll see a little question there about narrow versus wide. And so when I talk, I didn't talk about that last week, but what I mean by that is like narrowly, what are the circumstances that are contributing to this present moment, and then kind of more broadly, what are the circumstances? So in the example that we started last week, we're going to continue with this week. Narrowly is everything that's happening in my living room on that Monday morning. But the broader view of my circumstances is being in seminary and being in this church and a history of being very tired, right? So the narrow and the broad circumstances. Question?
Narrow and broad is the same as immediate and immediate and not immediate.
Yeah, immediate and not immediate. Yeah, we could do it that way.
And eventually what will happen.
Sure, yeah. However that helps you. I like to think of narrow and broad. And so narrow and broad to me, you guys will maybe hear me throw this out, but how you frame something is really important. And so like you could imagine a picture, okay? And if you zoom in to a particular moment in that picture, you might see something. And the further that you zoom out, you'll see different things. So like, as an example, we could zoom in on a soldier in the picture of a battlefield, right, with a gun, kind of just like aiming, right? And if you were to just look at that, you would just say, okay, there's a soldier with a gun. What's the big deal, right? And then you could go a little further, and you could see he's got an enemy over here, and he's shooting at his enemy. And then you could zoom out a little further, and maybe you see a different soldier who's not just shooting enemy, he's like shooting kids or something like that, right? And the further that you zoom out, you might see different understandings of that present moment, right? And so I think about that with life. How do you frame a situation? So often we pick the frame that makes us look the best. Does that make sense? We'll frame a situation to make it look like we're doing the right thing. But if you were to zoom out, it would become very evident that we're not in the right. Or if you were to zoom in, it could become very evident that we're not in the right. So I like to think of circumstances in those frames. What do I see narrowly? What do I see broadly? Okay? And be careful, by the way, with the framing, because the way that we argue often is by framing things to our liking. So if I pick the right viewpoint on any particular issue, like a political issue, if I pick the viewpoint that matters most to me, I can make a really strong political case. But somebody gets on the other side of that same issue, they have a different viewpoint, and then my views don't really hold. And so you want to be thinking about all those different points of view as you think about life. Anyways, so that's just a little tip for circumstances. What is the goal? Again, how are the circumstances impacting me? How are they influencing me? And in return, what am I doing to my circumstances? How am I impacting my circumstances? And the goal here for this one, we can't control this one, but this one, how do I control my response to my circumstances? The goal here would be good deeds again, and particularly the word surrender here. When I say surrender, what I want us to think about is I need to stop trying to control my circumstances. So often we think the problem isn't here, the problem is here, or the problem is here. We even say the problem is up here with God, right? And if only my circumstances were different, if only I had more money, this wouldn't be a problem. If only my child was healthy, we wouldn't be here right now, right? And so the goal with circumstances is to say, Lord, you control my circumstances. I want to respond to them in a way that honors you. I want to try to just do good here. And if you were to think about good, particularly with circumstances, I would use the concept of salt and light. Matthew 5:13-14. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Do you guys understand that, by the way? How can salt lose its saltiness? Sorry, I'm going to digress. It's just a little bit of exegesis for you guys. Salt in the ancient world wasn't always just salt, right? Oftentimes it was saltpeter. There were various forms of salt, so you could get pure salt, but you could also get the most common form of salt was salt from like a marsh, so a salty lake or a salty ocean, and you could collect that sand there in the marsh, and there was a lot of salt in it. But if that stuff got wet, all you'd be left with is the dirt. And so when he says, how can salt get its saltiness back if it loses its saltiness? That's the kind of salt he's talking about. Is, it would be gross for us. You'd be eating a steak and just be biting through chunks of sand. We're pampered. Anyways, so that's what he's talking about. So what's that good for? It's good for nothing. You're the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. A light that's hidden is useless, right? And I think about this sometimes. I have my phone, and I put the flashlight on there, and whenever I'm getting ready in the morning, like my kids are asleep, my wife is asleep, so I'm going around the room like this all the time. And I'll leave the light on, and I'll just put it in my back pocket, right? And how useless is that light? It's just a waste of battery, right? That's not you. You're not useless salt. You're not a light under a bushel. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So when you think about your circumstances, why are you doing good? It's to bring glory to the Father. So that too is an act of worship. Okay, and then the last one is self, right? And that first question that we're asking is, what is my physical condition? How am I doing? Am I sleepy? Am I tired? Am I healthy or not? What identities are most relevant in this moment? Who here is a Mariners fan? That identity as a Mariners fan has been more relevant recently. There's like very few. I'm so shocked. But that identity as a Mariners fan has been more relevant lately, I think, right? They're doing well? Are they doing well? Good for you guys. Awesome, right? But like for the rest of the year, that may not matter, right? So not all your identities are relevant. Your identity as a Mariners fan is probably not going to be relevant to many situations in life, but super important to others. And then that other question, how have those identities been formed? Around, has God been the one to define my identity? Has the world, my background, my circumstances, my culture, has that defined my identity? Or myself? Have I written my own identity? The goal here for the Christian is identity is in Christ and to be healthy, right? So you do want to be getting sleep and you do want to be eating food, and sometimes you can't, you're tired and that's the circumstance you're in. It would not be right to say, okay, well, you know what, I need to just go to sleep right now and I'm going to avoid all my problems. Sleep when you can, absolutely, and try to take good care of yourself, but also trust and believe that God's grace is sufficient for your sleepiness in this moment so that your heart can still honor him while being tired, right? All right, that's the outside. And if we were thinking about our example from last week, God for Joe is with him, he's empowering him, he's loving him, he's sanctifying him. Joe's not really paying attention. Otherwise, in Joe's life, you have the wife, right, who's getting the kids ready for school, and you have the kids, right, who are not cooperating. And then the circumstances, you've got just this busyness of seminary, and you've got the cultural stuff, and you've got expectations, right? And then up in the self, there is this feeling of being fat or unhealthy. And that's just how I see myself. That identity is there. Other parts of my identity that are there is that I'm hardworking. And this is going to connect to a thought here, so we'll just jump that bridge right now. And when you're a hard worker and it's your one day off a week, one of my beliefs is I deserve rest. Okay? And so when I said earlier, how does the heart respond to the circumstances and how the circumstances influence the heart? Being hardworking while in being busy in seminary and my cultural expectations, all of those things, the way that I'm influencing all that and believing all that is Joe worked hard, so Joe deserves rest. And I'm taking a page out of the world's kind of playbook here, is that I deserve my rest right here, right now. Rest is good. God gives it to you. He actually just gives it to you. So when you go about taking it, you're in danger, right? Okay, so I hope we start to see the self, right? There's a back and forth here, and this thought, I deserve rest, is related to my circumstances. So we're going to start going inside, the inward realities of the heart in three categories. First, thoughts. With that, beliefs and questions. So we start with what thoughts are just bouncing around in my head. Kind of slow down, step outside yourself for a second, and just observe your own mind. What actually am I thinking about? So just to kind of set you guys back in that, was anybody not here last week? Okay, so let me recap the story. Okay, so it was a Monday morning. I'm at this time in seminary and pastoring a church and very, very busy. The only kind of off time that our family had at this time was Monday morning, like wake up to noon. That was it. That's the only break that we had in the week. I was feeling chubby, and so Sunday night I said to my wife, set an alarm. I'm going to set an alarm, I think, for 8 or 8:30, something like that. And if I don't wake up, you wake me up and make sure that I go to the gym. And my wife agrees to that. Monday morning comes, and I decide to sleep in because I'm tired, and that's just life. My wife says, hey, you asked me to keep you accountable. Wake up, go to the gym. So I wake up angry. I wake up angry at my wife for holding me accountable to what I asked her to do last night. And I start getting my gym bag ready. I'm getting ready to head out the door. And my wife, who knows that I'm going to go to the gym for an hour or two, says, I'm not going to just waste the morning. So she's getting the kids ready to go to a reading thing in a library. And she's struggling to get Palmer and Jane out the door. They're just, throwing a fit about everything and crying and all that kind of stuff. And so as I'm going out the door, she says, hey, can you help get the kids up and out of the door? And I have, a terrible attitude. So I'm just like, I thought you wanted me to go to the gym, right? And I start giving that lip. And she's like, well, if you're going to be that way, you might as well just go. And it's kind of a back and forth, because then when she's like getting ready, just go, then something else breaks down. She's like, actually, could you please help? And it goes back and forth a few times until I just say, not another word. And I drop my bag on the ground all dramatically, and I say, don't talk. I'm staying. I'm going to help you get the kids out of the house. You're going. Like, that's it, right? And that's the moment, that moment of me dropping the bag and being like, stop speaking. That's the snapshot. That's the moment that we're going to uncover the depths of depravity in Joe's heart. Okay, so that's where we're going. So one of the thoughts that's bouncing around in my head this morning is that I deserve rest, right? And that's built on these circumstances, and it's built on identities, right? What is the desire connected to this thought of I deserve rest? I want to feel good. Yeah? Yeah. Feel good? Yes, I do want to feel good, but real simple here. The desire is for sleep, for rest. So I'm going to draw a dividing line, and every time we put a feeling up, I want to put the desire up too, okay? So Joe wakes up with the desire for rest. And the reason I'm using rest is because it's a biblical category, right? As much as possible, think in biblical categories. So like, you guys have heard me say this, like in English, we've got so many words for angry. And we use them to justify ourselves. I'm not angry, I'm just frustrated, right? And the Bible is like, yeah, you're angry, right? Because we don't have all those words, right? And so I'm not going to say that I just want to sleep. I'm going to use the word rest, because that theme comes up over and over and over again in Scripture. Going back to the beginning, remember how we were going to follow those threads through Scripture? So rest is one of those threads that you can follow through Scripture, from the beginning of creation all the way to the end, right? So I desire rest. I am clearly not getting rest, right? In multiple ways. What's the first way I'm not getting rest?
Busy.
I'm busy in life. What's the other way I'm not getting rest?
Mentally.
Sorry, was one more? I heard things.
You're not in bed anymore.
I'm not in bed anymore. Yeah, that's like the big one right now, is I want to be on my pillow. And then what else is happening in my house?
Your wife's talking to you.
Yeah, my wife's talking to me. These kids are crazy. So I'm denied rest in 3 ways: with crazy kids, with no sleep, and just with life. And how do I feel because I'm not getting my rest? Angry. Okay, great. So angry, and you could say frustrated or whatever. The word is angry, right? We're using biblical categories. I feel anger because I'm not getting my rest. Do you guys see the connection between this thought? If I don't believe that I deserve rest, will I be angry over here? No. If I don't believe that I deserve rest, but I still want it and I'm not getting it, what emotion might show up instead? Yeah, I'm disappointed. It's like I was really hoping for, I know I don't deserve it, but I was kind of hoping. And it didn't get here this morning, so I would feel disappointed. So I want you to see, like, you can't separate these things. They're connected. The thought of the belief that I deserve rest is connected to this over here, the anger for not getting it. I feel entitled to it, right? So there's the rest, there's the anger, and then again, responding to the world around me, who is my anger directed towards in this moment? Bingo. My anger is directed toward my wife and kids. And where else is my anger directed? Circumstances in life, right? And whenever we're like angry about our circumstances in life, who else are we really angry with? God. Because he's the one who's sovereignly ordaining all of these things. So I'm just angry at everybody in the world right now, right? All right. Any other thoughts you think might be floating around in Joe's head on this sacred morning?
You're not doing a good job of parenting.
Wow. Yeah. Dang. Just, yes. I am, what's the word? Selfish. Yeah. Selfish. Yes, I am. So my a belief here that's just going on in my head is my wife should not need my help and should manage our kids better, right? And we all feel that, right? Your kids, Judy stole a candy bar today from Dollar Tree. My little one, my 3-year-old, she stole a candy bar. So takes after her dad. I've stolen a lot of candy bars. And you that happens, and it's easy to go blame your spouse. Maybe you blame yourself. Why are my kids turning out this way, right? So my wife should not need my help and should manage our kids better.
Did you ever take it back?
I don't know yet. We haven't dealt with the candy bar situation yet. So my guess is she ate it, and she's going to have to make a really cute apology tomorrow that I'm not sure will be authentic because she's 3. Anyways. Okay, the belief over here, my wife should not need my help, should manage our kids better. What feelings, desires, I'll just bounce over here. So I have anger because I want rest. What other desire, looking at this, do you begin to see with this belief?
Peace and quiet. Proverbs 31 wife.
I need a Proverbs 31 wife, peace and quiet. So I'm entitled to the rest. So I guess a desire here would be for my wife to do this herself, right? A desire would be, how do you quantify that?
Time.
Take a break.
You want time.
I do want time. I guess how do I put this? I want her to deal with it. Yeah, I want her to be independent, self-sufficient. Thank you. That's the word. I want her to be self-sufficient. What I want is a self-sufficient wife. That's the desire. Thank you. Thank you for helping me think through my thoughts. I want a self-sufficient wife, and I feel like I'm not getting that right now. So anger absolutely is part of that. What else is maybe a feeling associated with that? Disappointment. Yep. Disappointment.
Guilt, because you know better.
Not yet. We are so far away from guilt. We are so far away from guilt. Okay. My wife needs my help. I have a choice at this point to let her flail about or to step in like the shining hero and give my wife the help that she's asking for, right? So the second that I drop my bag and I say I'm staying home and I'm going to help the kids, what do I believe about myself in that moment? I'm better? Close. Yeah, I mean, yes, that's kind of there, but kind of more on the nose.
You need to be pitied.
I need to be pitied, or she needs to be pitied? She needs to be pitied. I am pitying her, yeah. Oh, I need to be pitied. Yeah, a little bit.
You're being a martyr.
Thank you. I'm being I'm the hero, right? Like, the grossest point in this is that Joe actually thinks he's doing the right thing, right? I believe, like, look, I'm entitled to my rest, and I've been deprived of it, and now my kids are going crazy and my wife needs my help. Fine, I'll do it again. I'll save the day again. I'll sacrifice my desires for my kids again. So there's a third belief in here is that I'm the hero, right? I'm the hero in this story. And so what desire might be connected to that? Recognition, yeah. And I'll just again, I'm going to throw a biblical word up in there, just glory, right? I want glory. I want to be the man. And the way that I get my glory and the way that I be the man in this moment is by, I'm going to sacrifice going to the gym to help you out, right? What feeling here is associated with the desire for glory? Pride, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I feel prideful. I feel proud. Absolutely. Very good. Any other thoughts, you think, bounce around in Joe's head? I'm trying to think back to that moment years ago. What's that? Yeah. I'm the hero. This is that very, very much related to that. I'm going to sacrifice myself. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I think that kind of explores the thoughts fairly well. That kind of hits the big ones. Anger, disappointment, pride. Yep. That pretty much describes my feelings. Desires, rest, self-sufficient wife. And, with that, perfect kids, right? And I'm not getting any of these things, so there's that. And then my glory. Okay, great.
Would that be just different circumstances then too?
What are you thinking?
Yeah, when you're feeling deprived, you're feeling all this other stuff, but isn't underneath you're wishing different circumstances?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm wishing of some alternate reality where my wife said, you know what, husband, I know that last night you said, wake me up in the morning, but I know that what you really want to do is sleep. I could read your mind, and you've earned it, you stud. So I'm going to take these kids, and I've got no problem because I'm super mom and my kids don't cry. And I'm going to go take them to the library. We're going to come back in an hour, and I'll wake you up then. That's what I want. That's the other set of circumstances that I'm desiring, yes.
Oh, I was going to say, were you feeling disrespected at all?
Disrespected. That's interesting. Yes. And the disrespect came in the back and forth, right? It came up in this woman can't make up her mind, right? She can't make up her mind. So she keeps asking me for help. And yeah, there's this kind of feeling of disrespect here. Disrespect. I don't want disrespect. Oops. I'm feeling it. I want respect. Give me respect, right? Yeah, okay. Disrespected is how I'm feeling, and then respect is what I want. Yep. Okay. Very good. So we've just been living up here in the thoughts and the feelings. Let me go back to my notes. You know what? I'll just finish this, and then we'll come back to the notes, okay? So I'm going to give us a little bit more space for the will. Now, the moment that I raise my voice and say, not another word, what am I doing? I'm telling my wife to shut up. But I'm a seminary student, so I don't say shut up. That's rude. Not another word. So there's a little bit more glory that I'm just throwing on myself. Look at how benevolent I am, right? When I drop my bag and I say, shut up, that's really what I'm saying, right? What am I doing to my wife? And I want you to think about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. I want you to think about when he talked about murder and anger. What am I doing to my wife when I say, shut up? Don't say another word. I'm going to help you get the kids out of the house and you're going to be gone and I'm staying home. What am I saying to her? You don't matter?
You don't respect you. You quench your spirit.
so many. I'm doing. Those are all very. You guys are doing a great job putting yourself in her shoes. What I'm saying is, thank you. Who said murder? Thank you, Doug. Why is that murder? I killed her spirit. When I say shut up, what am I saying? When I say don't speak anymore, what am I saying about her presence? Get out of here. Go away. I don't want you here. Why is that murder?
She's a part of you.
She is a part of me. But think about what is murder at the end of the day? What are you doing to someone's existence? You're erasing it. I want you gone, and I want you gone for good. The only difference between anger and murder is how long you want someone gone. It's why God said that anger is murder. That when you say to your brother, you fool, you've murdered them in your heart. Because you're attacking them and you're getting rid of them and you're saying, I don't want you around here anymore, right? So when I tell my wife, not another word, I've just killed her in my heart. I've just murdered her in my heart. Now, the thing that we've got to unpack here is why in the world would Joe do that? Why would, not just me, why would any of us kill someone in their hearts? Why would I murder my wife in this moment? Sin, yeah, because I'm a sinner, yes.
The pain that you were feeling.
Okay, thank you. I feel angry and disappointed, and my pride is hurt, and I feel disrespected. Who's the victim in this story? Me. Who's on the receiving side of injustice? Me. No, not my wife. My wife is the evil one. I am the recipient of injustice. I deserve rest. I deserve good kids. I deserve a wife who can perfectly manage everything. And my wife and my kids in this world have not given it to me. I am the victim of injustice. And I will have my justice. And I will get my justice by taking my pound of flesh from my wife. She's going to know that she's wronged me. And I'm going to let her know that she's wronged me through anger. The giving of anger, when we're on the receiving side of injustice, when we believe that we've been truly wronged, there's only a few ways for us to handle the imbalance in that moment. The most common way is that we punch back. So you're leaving the Rosars gas station or Rosars parking lot, and you're waiting for a chance to go left, and the car behind you is like, "You had a chance to go left. You had two chances." Beep, right? And eventually you're like, "Okay, I finally got my chance to go left," and you turn, and the guy is not only flicking you off, he's just flipping you the bird, right? What's the normal way of responding to that? You've been wronged. How do you respond? Retaliate? Yeah, flip them off. Who's done that here? Come on, show of hands. I'm just kidding. Yeah, hey, I got one half-honest person. Thank you. I know y'all have done it once or twice, maybe, I don't know. Or you honk back. Or you curse under your breath. But what you do is you kill them. They've attacked you. You attack them. It's your way of righting the scales of justice. It's why on the playground, when one kid gets punched, they punch him back, right? So that's one way that we deal with the injustice. The other way that we deal with the injustice, if we're not going to add pain to their life, we're going to take away love. And so we do this with our kids. We do this with our spouses. You know what, wife? I'm going to be cold to you during lunchtime. I'm not going to talk to you, right? Husband, you've offended me. I hope you enjoy that cold side of the bed. You're not allowed to come over here, right? We get even by withholding love from our spouse, right? That's the other way that we bring the scales of justice back into order. What is the right way to handle injustice? You confront it, close. You forgive, love. Yes, we can do those things, but we still have to deal with justice. How do we get justice? How does the Christian get justice? To the one who judges justly. We say, you know what, I'm going to get out of the judgment seat because I don't know heads or tails. I don't know up or down. But I know a God who has perfect scales of justice. And I'm going to leave it to him. I trust God to get justice in this moment. So in this moment, none of this is right. I shouldn't actually feel these things. And we'll get to the falsehoods that they're built on in a little bit. But even now, the most God-honoring thing I could do in this moment would be to say, Lord, I didn't get my rest today and I deserve it. I didn't get that wife who's perfectly managing her kids and I deserve it. I didn't get perfect kids and I deserve it. But I will let you give them to me in your time. And I'm going to go back and love my kids and love my wife. That's how we get to the love. In that situation of being wronged is you give up justice to the Lord and you go and love the person that you're in the conflict with. But my will was not to give justice to the Lord. What was my will?
Get your way.
Get my own way, get my own justice. So I am going to, the will at the end of the day was to avenge myself, right? By crushing my wife. Do you guys think I knew that when I said the words, not another word, it would hurt my wife? You bet. You bet. You'd have to be a nincompoop not to know that. It was intentional. But I felt justified. Pride over here. How did I feel? I felt justified. I felt justified in my anger and in my disappointment and in my pride. I felt justified in this because back up here, I deserve rest. And because I believed that I deserved rest when it was taken away from me, I believed that I was now being treated, I am the victim here, right? I'm the one who shouldn't be on the recipient. This is my one time. These are the 4 hours a week I get to rest. They're mine. And I wasn't getting them. And so I took it out on my wife. How aware of all of this do you think I am in the moment? Yeah, fully. Which is why I did it. No, I don't know most of this. And this is my point. We don't know often why we do what we do. We just get in that moment and we just drop the bag and we say, hey, stop talking. Okay, I'll help you get the kids out of the house. You guys go. I'm just going to stay home. And that exasperated tone, that's what we say get out of here. And we don't understand that in our hearts, we've just murdered somebody, right? We've just gotten justice our way. We don't know what those things that we are, that we believe that we deserve. We don't realize all the stuff that's happening in that moment. And so this is why I want you guys to have a self-counseling project. Because just doing this one time, it will change forever the way that you get angry in the future. I can't get angry the same way anymore. Soon as that feeling of anger starts to pour up, I've had this shameful moment in front of classes too many times to just let the feeling of anger ride. I know that there are things I'm believing that aren't true. I know that there's things I feel entitled to that I'm not entitled to. And I know that if I keep continuing down this path, I'm going to try to get my own version of justice, and it'll be deeply wrong, and I'm going to hurt somebody. And I know all those things. They're now part of my identity. And so I can't keep acting that way, okay? So this is the heart. Starting next week, we're going to talk about how do you fix this thing? Because once you fix that, we got a real shot at worshiping God, loving others, and doing good. Okay? So I want to kind of walk through the thoughts and beliefs. What thoughts do I have in this moment? Start with the actual thoughts floating around your head. What are the big ticket ones that are genuinely floating around in there? So like some thoughts that I would have had in the moment is this: why does she need my help? Right? Why are my kids acting this way? right? They might have looked more like questions actually than anything else. Why are my kids this way? And what is that saying? I don't think my kids should be this way. Why is my wife asking for help? What's that saying that I believe? I don't think she should need my help, right? So that's the second one, is what thoughts do I have, but also what questions do I have? What questions am I asking of myself, God, others, and my circumstances? What do I believe about, what questions am I asking out here? So what questions am I asking about my wife? What questions am I asking about my circumstances? And what thoughts are going through my head? And we're going to talk about transformation next week, but I think as we do the diagnosing of the problem, we want to identify negative patterns of thought. Okay? So here's the first one: lies I believe. So if you can really step out yourself for a second and evaluate your thoughts, you can ask yourself, what lies am I believing? Right? And the first lie that I'm believing is this: I deserve rest. The truth that I should be believing is God will give me rest in his time. That I have all the rest that I need in Jesus Christ. But the belief that right here, right now, rest is my divine right, that's a lie. Right? So I'm going to try to recognize those things. My wife should not need my help, and my kids, and she should manage our kids better. Lie or truth? Lie. What I'm really believing is that my wife should be perfect and my kids should be perfect. Is that a reasonable belief? No. I am the hero. Is that it's a lie. She can't make up her mind? That's the one truth in this whole thing. Because Cass was really having trouble figuring out if she wanted help or if she wanted me to go, right? I'm the victim here. Another lie, right? So you want to identify the lies that you're believing. And then when this situation comes up again and you start to feel like the victim, you're going to be like, oh no, there's the lie. And you'll just immediately begin to recognize it. So you want to recognize what lies you're believing, and then doubts that you're feeding. So in here, do you see any thought of God whatsoever? Okay. Maybe you're like me. A lot of times I can go quite a few thoughts without believing in God. Thinking about God. Sorry, not believing God, but thinking about God and what he's doing in this moment. But there are other times where you are deeply aware of what God is doing in this moment. And it leads to doubt. You doubt that he's with you. You doubt that he's empowering you. You doubt that he's loving you. You doubt that he's sanctifying you. And you can feed those doubts, or you can quench them. You can preach to them the truth, right? So don't be feeling guilty because you have doubt, but bring your doubt to God. Don't feed your doubt by staying away from him, right? So what doubts am I feeding? What questions should I not be asking? We can ask a lot of bad questions. So like the one behind this thought of my wife should not need my kids' help and she should manage our kids better is, why is my wife like this? And just recognizing that question. Why is she behaving this way? Like, man, should I really be asking that question? There's a way to ask it in love. Oh, why is the house a mess right now? How can I help? And diagnosing the problem is one. But there's another way of asking that question, like, why does she need my help? Right? And it's not a good question. I can just look at that question on its face and say, that doesn't honor God. And then the last one is thoughts or questions that aren't there but should be. And so, although this section of the heart is full, it is very much missing thoughts about God. Joe is not thinking at all about what God would have him do or say or be in this situation. Joe isn't thinking at all about what God has provided for him in this moment. And so you can tell a lot by the thoughts that aren't there. You know what question I'm not asking? How do I love my wife? I'm not asking, what do I do to please my Lord? Those are the questions that are missing, but should be there. The next one, our emotions and our feelings, our desires. I want to make the point here. Feelings and desires are typically, but not always, connected. So usually there's a feeling-desire relationship here, an emotion-desire relationship there. But I do want to make the space for us to understand that sometimes you're going to have a feeling that doesn't necessarily have a desire linked to it. In situations related to trauma, abuse, depression, or other mental illnesses that have biological origins, feelings may not be linked directly to a desire or a thought. So you can have the feeling of intense sadness, depression, that doesn't originate with some unmet desire or some belief about God, but it's just purely organic. You don't have any of the happy hormones right now, and so you feel like dying, right? And that can be the case. Now, what's important to understand is that that feeling is going to impact desires and thoughts. So that feeling of depression is there, and how you respond to it is incredibly important. Incredibly important. Because you can respond to your depression with faithlessness or faithfulness. And that's huge. You can respond to your depression with patience, or I've got no more patience, and I'm taking matters into my own hands, and I'm going to end my life right now, right? So there are ways to honor God with those feelings and ways not to honor God with those feelings. And it's very important that as you're counseling someone, when they have a feeling that you can't seem to change, you're changing thoughts, but the feeling doesn't change. You're changing desires, but the feeling doesn't change. And you're changing the will, but the feeling remains. Sometimes it's important to ask the question, is there a different reason for why this feeling is here? And if we're not careful, we'll keep beating somebody up and say, if you just had more faith, if you just really believed, then you wouldn't be sad anymore. And that is not a recipe that we find in Scripture. In fact, the Psalms would tell us the opposite, is like, I don't know why I just keep crying, but I will wait on you, God. I'll wait for your joy. So I want to say they're connected, not always. But what you want to start doing is identify the feelings and why they exist. I'm angry. Why am I angry? I feel shame. Why do I feel shame? What are my emotions, and what are my responses to God, my responses to others, my responses to my circumstances, my responses to my own self? And then are there emotions in the heart that persist despite my circumstances? What's fueling them? So one of those cool things is the more you grow with the Lord, you can have a set of circumstances going on in your life that would say sadness, 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 sadness. But somehow you can still have a deep and abiding joy in the Lord. And you should ask why. You want to be aware of not just the bad. We're not trying to focus on only bad here. We want to see good things too. This example just happens to have no redeeming qualities in me in that moment. But that's what you want to be thinking, is like, what are my emotions in response to this? And do I have emotions that are persisting despite my circumstances? And then connect them, if you can, to your thoughts. See those bridges there, and additionally, how they feed into the will. Before we move on, though, negative emotional patterns. So as soon as the desires get up on the board, the desire for rest, self-sufficient wife, glory, respect, if they're an evil desire, you just already know that's sinful, right? Lust, money, right? Like, greed, that's no-brainer, right? But is it a bad thing to want rest? No, it's not a bad thing at all. Do I want rest, or do I want rest more, or do I want to glorify God more in this moment? Rest. Do I want rest more, or do I want to love my wife more in this moment? Rest. So what is rest right now? It's an idol. Very good. So then you go look at these desires and you say, what do I want more? That or God? And don't say the Sunday school answer, well, of course I want God more. Okay, then why are you acting sinfully, right? The reality is that in that moment, rest is your functional God. Self-sufficient wife, glory, respect. I want all of these more than I want to please the Father. All of these are more important to me. I have 4 idols in my heart that need to be confessed of and repented of. So idolatrous desires is the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is like negative thought patterns. So when you're seeing lies over here connected to feelings, or doubts over here connected to feelings, or those missing thoughts over here connected to feelings, you can also kind of understand that maybe I have a desire that's fueled by a thought that isn't true. right? Or I have a feeling that's being fueled by a desire that isn't true. So you want to kind of recognize what's going wrong in this moment. And the last piece is the will. The will is most clearly seen in your actions. If you had said, Joe, what is your will in this morning? I would certainly not have said to avenge myself by crushing my wife. I would have said that my will was probably something to the effect of get my rest. Get my rest. Would have been what I had said. So how do I know that ultimately this was the will of my heart? Is that I'm going to kind of work backwards from my actions and uncover biblically what that says about what I'm actually willing in that moment. And the second that I drop the bag and tell my wife to be quiet, I've just become the judge, jury, and executioner in that moment and delivered my own version of justice. That's how I know that that's the case, but it's working backwards from that action. So the second question is, what did I do externally, or what am I doing internally that reveals my will? Because it's not always going to be an obvious outward manifestation. You ever had somebody lecturing you and you are just sitting in your heart, cursing them? But on the outside you're like, yeah? No? Never? You guys have never been to church before. That happens, right? You get to somebody, they're difficult to deal with, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to be here right now, right? That inward action of the heart is still an expression of your will. So you can think about that. What am I doing right now, and what does that reveal about my will? What does my will reveal about the rest of my heart, right? And it's by looking at the full picture that starts to really become obvious. What desires or emotions did my will act upon, right? These, anger, disappointment, pride, that's fueling this will that I have here. And what thoughts? I deserve rest, and all these other things. These are fueling my will right here. What desires and emotions did my will act upon? What thoughts or questions did my will act upon? And then the last one, is my will to do the glory of God, is my will to do the will of God and to bring him glory? And you got to figure out how to start working on your heart. But just for me, that's step one. In any situation, especially when I notice that sinful patterns or thoughts are beginning to emerge, I go back to my will. And I go back to Jesus on the mountain of Gethsemane, where he's like, Father, not my will, but your will be done. And that's the moment I have. I could be in the middle of a fight with Cass and say, oh, Father, not my will, but your will be done. And that's the beginning for me of starting to change the heart. But I know other people who their call back to center is, who do I believe God is right now? And they go back to their thoughts. And they say, like, who do I believe God is? And maybe they realize, I'm not even thinking about God. Or they believe, you know what, I think God is against me right now. And that's how they start to rebuild theirs. And I know other people who start with the emotions and the desires. I'm angry. Why do I feel that way? Because I want X. Lord God, forgive me for wanting that more than I want you. And starting from there. So you could pick any quadrant. Everything's connected. So as soon as you start to address one, it's going to spill into everything else. It's going to start changing what you're thinking about, the questions you're asking, and what you're trying to do. I can't ask, Father, what's your will, without my thoughts, right? I can't choose to do the Father's will without my thoughts being, what are the Father's will, and my desires becoming, I want to do the Father's will. So as soon as the will changes, like, everything changes. It's all connected. You can't separate it, okay? But those are the inward realities of your heart. Your thoughts, your feelings, desires, and your will. You guys have been doing the self-counseling projects. You have maybe last week's notes and this week's notes, which means you've got 2 sheets with everything in there. Whatever your self-counseling project is, you need to pick an incident this week where that issue came up. If it's laziness, pick that moment that you just realized you were on your phone for 30 minutes, right? If it's lust, pick that moment when you were tempted to look at pornography or something like that. If it's anger, pick that moment that you snapped at your spouse, whatever it might be. And say, you know what, I'm going to go detective mode. I'm going to step out of myself for a second. I'm going to put my heart on the petri dish, and I'm going to I'm going to examine every little piece. What's really going on in there? And what's so cool is if you practice this just a couple times, it will literally change the way that you go through that moment in the future. So raise your awareness by slowing down to dig in and really examine what's going on in your life. When I started to realize that I really believed that I deserved rest, and my circumstances weren't giving it to me, God gave me the opportunity to learn to surrender rest to him. And say, Father, I trust you to give me rest in your time. And if I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing, like if I'm doing too much work, reveal that to me. But otherwise, help me to trust that you're going to give me rest in your time. And it changed the way that I go home to my kids. After a long day at work, I don't think, how do I get my rest away from my kids? I think it's time to serve those kids and to love them. And when they're in bed, and when Cass and I have finally talked for a while and all that stuff, then God will give me rest. So that's what we want to do. And next week, what we'll start doing is the change process. All right? Question? Go ahead.
Now, what about asking the Lord to give you a time of rest?
Oh, yes.
And then also to give you when you
Oh, yes. So when you're facing the desire for rest, what's the right answer? What you just said. Ask the Lord for rest and give me the strength for this moment. That's 100% it. We'll get into this text later on, James 4. But God says, why do you guys fight and quarrel? Or James says, why do you guys fight and quarrel? Is it not the desires that rage within you, so the desire for rest? You don't have it because you don't ask. And you don't get it because you ask with wrong motives to spend it on your own desires. Humble yourself, weep, mourn, wail. Now we're getting into the change process, right? But the idea here is that if I ask God for rest for the right reasons, he is going to give it at the right time. I can trust that. And if he's not giving it to me right now, then he is with me, empowering me to help me love everybody else. And all the strength I need, he has it for me right now. If I try to do it in my power, it ain't going to work out. But if I do it with his power, I can go home and I can love my kids really well.
was it Elijah was somebody who needed rest, right?
Oh, yeah, Elijah. Yeah, after running 80 miles. Yeah. He needed, and God sent him the ravens and gave him water. Yeah, I mean, like, God will use ravens to give you food if that's what you need. Amen. Yes. That's right. Yes. The Sabbath. It's literally commanded in Scripture. Amen. Thank you, Angie. Yes?
When you started this example, you started with thoughts. And most of the time when people come to you for questions, they're going to be starting with emotion.
Yeah, that's fine. You can start in any quadrant of the heart. So if somebody says, like, I'm just so angry and I don't know why, be like, okay, we're going to throw that up on the board. First question I'm going to ask is, what do you want? That's always whenever anyone says I'm angry, back to James 4, it's the desires. What do you want? What do you want that you're not getting? I just want peace. I just want my husband to blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I want to come over to your thoughts. What do you believe about that? You probably think that you deserve X, Y, or Z. Who are you blaming for not having it? Well, I'm blaming my husband, or maybe I'm blaming God, or maybe I'm blaming my whole set of life circumstances. And it's like, okay, cool. And here's the hardest part when you're counseling somebody. What they want is for you to fix those things. And what you're saying is, actually, what I'm going to help you do is change nothing and then worship God with this moment, right? But what's cool is when you're able to worship God with that moment, all of these feelings, they start to change, right? And you can have the same person, the same set of circumstances go from angry and depressed to joyful through the worship of God. And that's pretty cool. So when we're doing biblical counseling, people are going to come in and they're going to say, like, I want to not be angry anymore. And you're going to say, hey, we're doing biblical counseling. And if they're a Christian, this is really easy. The ultimate goal is the worship and the glory of God. And if they've got the Holy Spirit, they believe that and they want that. And then what you show them is as they do that, God's going to come around with all of those goodies. And then with an unbeliever, it's like, hey, you actually made for worship. And once you start doing that, you get all the goodies on the other side. And they're going to learn about the process. They're going to learn about what they should believe. They're going to learn about the gospel in all of that. At the end of the day, they'll either take it or they'll leave it. But if they take it, they are going to start the Christian race so far ahead because they understand all this, and it's pretty cool. And it happens. God brings people to faith like that all the time. Any other questions tonight? Yes?
Okay. I'm in the middle of an argument with my husband.
Yes.
And he's being a jerk. Belligerent.
Belligerently angry. Just, yeah, you cannot speak to this man. Yeah.
So do I say, what are your thoughts, honey?
You know your husband better than I do. I don't talk to anybody who's belligerent. Yeah.
So, or would you say, okay, let's just take a step back now?
Yeah, I would. I would take a step back. And you got to be careful when you're counseling somebody. Yeah, Cass and I have had fights where it's like, don't you do it. Don't try to counsel me. You don't get to all of a sudden, because here's the thing is if I'm contributing to the argument and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, why don't we examine this biblical counseling wise? Like, so I don't want to hear that from you because you've offended me, right? And so I have to be careful about that. The way there is first by owning whatever sin that you have, confessing that, repenting of it to the Lord, repenting of it to your spouse, break them down with kindness. My wife does that to me all the time.
He would never do that.
Yes. But this is for anybody who has that situation, yeah.
We argued one time early on in our relationship, and I was so angry, and I was just walking away up the road, and
Yeah.
he came up and he held my hand.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's really hard to be angry with
It
someone
is, kill them with kindness.
loving someone.
Amen, yeah. That's going to be a way better way to calm any situation down then.
Tell him I'm going to love you right out of this.
In your heart, maybe. So I get that way sometimes. I love you, right? But what comes out is hopefully something a little less eyebrow furrowed. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me pray for us, and we're going to close for tonight. Lord, I thank you for just the time that we've spent this evening. Lord, I pray for everyone's heart in this room. I pray that you would help them to draw the depths of their own hearts out through the power of the Holy Spirit. And whatever circumstances we might face this week, we know that you're with us, that you're working in us, that you're empowering us, that you're calling us to love others and to worship you, and that you will give us everything we need to do that, and that it truly is more blessed to give than to receive. So, Lord, help us to delight in you this week and live transformed lives. To you be all the glory, and in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good night, everyone.